Polaris by Shayna Leck. One fall night, long, long ago, but in a land not so far away, when we relied on intuition, maps, and road signs rather than smartphones, a man drove his sleeping family home to McPherson from Kansas City. In the passenger seat, Mother woke with a smile, her eyes delighted to find stars in view. She read the stars and was disturbed. After visiting with Father, she determined they were traveling in the wrong direction, actually paralleling interstate, going in the opposite way of home. She knew that traveling southwest with a view from her passenger side window, she should not be able to see Orion. And so, following intuition and her familiarity with the stars, she guided them back to I-35 and began conversation with their son, who had awoken to his parents' voices. Did you know that humans have been guided by the stars for thousands of years?
Why didn't they just use their phones?
Phones haven't always been available. Well, they still aren't to many people.
How did they do it?
Those in the southern hemisphere use the Southern Cross to guide them. Those exploring the northern hemisphere turn to the Big Dipper in the sky. But both constellations, like other stars, move about from hour to hour or season to season. Polaris, the North Star, appears to remain stationary.
Where is it, Mom? That one that's standing still?
You can see it now, out your window to the northwest. Start by finding the Big Dipper low in the sky.
I see it, Mom. The scoop is just above the trees.
Yes, most people can find it quickly. You see the two stars making out the bottom outside of the scoop? The lower one is Merak, the higher one Debye. Go from Merak to Debye, then follow the line the same distance 5 times over. The bright star you see is Polaris, the last star in the handle of the Little Dipper.
Yeah, there it is, right in the middle of Little Bear. I thought that was the North Star.
Well, it is. It's the North Star. And the Little Dipper is part of Ursa Minor.
Why does it have 2 names?
Well, Polaris has many names. Most relate to its position in relation to the North Pole. Do you remember looking at the globe at home? While it spins, the North Pole and the South Pole are still, right?
Yes.
Well, imagine putting a stick through those points and extending it to the sky. It would almost touch the North Star. So if you see that star from here and face it directly, you're facing north. For that reason, it's called the North Star, Lodestar, Guide Star. Other names, based on the constellation it's found in, are Cynosure, or Dog's Tail, and Alpha Ursa Minoris. Because it's the largest of a triple system, it is also known as Polaris A. Not only can you find your directions using Polaris, you can also use the angle between it and the horizon to determine your latitude.
What's that?
Oh, let's look at the globe tomorrow to figure that out. Most stars get their stories from the place in the constellation they're in. Polaris has some simple mythologies about it. Remember the idea of putting a stick through the poles? Well, Norse mythology shares that idea, saying the North Star was the end of that stick, or spike, that the sky rotated around. Mongolians said it was the peg that held the world together. Hey, when we saw the mountain goats on vacation last year, there's a story about them too. Imagine one of those goats climbing the tallest, highest mountain, entering a cave near the top and continuing to climb until it came out the other side and was standing on top of the sky, on top of that spike from Norse mythology. That's the story of the Paiute. And Pawnee Indians believed the North Star was given instructions to stand still and watch over the others. They called it Chief Star and believed it was a constant guidance, and believed its constant guidance was an example of how the chief should behave. These stories don't get too elaborate. Most people just see Polaris as having practical application, like being a source for direction. But it wasn't always. Long ago, when the pyramids were being built, Tuban was the bright star closest to the northern celestial pole. The process of the North Star title being exchanged from one star to another is due to the sweeping motion called precession.
I thought you said that Polaris didn't move.
Well, it doesn't move relative to the other stars, but over thousands of years, the Earth wobbles just enough that that stick going through the poles will point to a variety of stars. In another 80 years, Polaris will be as close to the true north as it will ever be, within 1 degree. And over the centuries that follow, it will drift away, allowing another star to take its place as North Star. Polaris is often said to be the brightest star in the sky. But even though it's much brighter than the sun, it barely makes the top 50 list.
It's not brighter than the sun, Mom.
Oh, the sun appears to be brighter because it's closer to Earth. Think about a match versus a small flashlight. If you stand at one end of the football field and I stand at the other, holding a lit match, and Dad's next to me holding a flashlight, which one seems brighter?
The flashlight.
Okay, so what if I get so close to you you could blow that match out, but Dad stays on the other side of the field? If he stays put and I held the lit match just 6 inches away from you, which would seem brighter?
The match, it would be brighter.
Well, the match would just appear to be brighter because of its apparent magnitude. But the flashlight would actually be putting off more light, giving it a higher absolute magnitude. Polaris gives off more light. It is brighter than the sun if they were seen from the same distance. But the sun's over 400 times closer to us than Polaris, so it appears brighter. But you can't see much of anything with your eyes closed, so try to get some sleep while I talk to Dad. I won't hit you up with all the numbers, but did you know that Polaris is over 430 light years away, while the sun is only about 1.5? They have really similar temperatures. Polaris is just a little hotter, but Polaris is a supergiant, while the sun's a dwarf. Polaris has over 4.5 times the mass of the sun, and nearly 40 times the radius. The sun's just middle-aged, but Polaris is reaching the latter part of its life, having already fused the hydrogen in its core. It now has an unstable helium core. While Polaris is an older unstable star, having left the main sequence, it's thrown some surprises at astronomers. The star, a Cepheid variable, is predicted to no longer pulsate in the future, which isn't normal. In addition, it emits X-rays, something typically reserved for stars with a hot ionized gas or plasma near their surface, which, by definition, it shouldn't have. Eli was talking the other day about aliens. I wonder if he understands that there are innumerable systems in which planets orbit stars other than the sun. It's unlikely that any planet orbiting Polaris would be able to contain life. As Polaris is at the latter end of its life, its unstable state would terminate whatever water may have been present on a planet within the habitable zone. Also, the X-rays emitted from it would have killed off any previous life. Well, now I'm just chatting away to stay awake while you drive. I don't want to end up going northeast again tonight.
Do you think life could really exist out there?
Oh, it's possible. Just not around Polaris in its current stage of life. I mean, if so, and they make contact with us, I hope they see us as simply another part of creation. Just another being on Earth, trying to make life for fellow man able to reach its full potential. Content to be what, who, and where we are. I don't see us ever contacting another life form that's orbiting Polaris. Radio transmissions have been sent, and I suppose we could try that again, directing them to Polaris.
Okay, this is getting too deep for me. I need to pay attention to the highway signs. Why don't you keep looking out your window for Polaris and guide me on the right direction if I stray?
Well, the family continued west, with the North Star out the passenger window. When they arrived home, they carried Eli to bed, and he dreamt about aliens communicating with him. But when he woke in the morning, he couldn't see that North Star anymore. But he knew when night came again, it would be there, pointing him to home.